He's shaking in his boots right now that I'm willing and able and gonna be the best possible TJ Dillashaw that night. I'm coming in there and I'm shutting him down and he's losing his job. It's not about my opponent. It's about my legacy as a whole. I'm looking to be the best pound for pound fighter ever, and Henry Cejudo is a stepping stone for me.
The moment you feel you're invisible is the moment that you're gonna be vulnerable. And that's how I see TJ Dillashaw. I don't care what he's done, who he is. I'm here to spoil that with bad intentions. The more pressure, the more spotlight you put on my plate, the more Henry will come and perform. There's a lot to prove to the world.
January 19th, 2019. Mark it down. If you're at a dinner party in 20 years, you'll tell them on January 19th, 2019, history was made in Brooklyn, New York, the very first card in the history of the UFC on ESPN and ESPN Plus era, and you are looking live inside the Barclays Center here in the BK. Because we are just counting down the minutes at this point. Literally minutes away from history being made. The brand new era is about to commence. UFC on ESPN. How many times could you say that you're a part of something new, something historic, something brand spanking new? That's what's happening here tonight, my friends. It's actually going down. History is actually being made. I can't say that enough. Ariel Helwani, Chael P. Sonnen, could you tell we're excited? We're less than 2 hours away from history being made. 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's when it kicks off on ESPN Plus. Then we've got prelims on ESPN at 8, and then the main card back on ESPN Plus. And by the way, you just saw a snippet of UFC Destined, a brand new show that you can catch on ESPN Plus. Check it out after we're done because it's a great preview into the TJ Dillashaw Henry Cejudo fight. Chael, history. How many times have you been a part of history?
Hi, hello. Well, I didn't really know I was being part of history tonight.
What do
I
you
think
mean?
that you make a very fair point, but here we are. We're all here on this journey together. I guess I just expected at this point that everybody knew,
No.
but I love your enthusiasm.
You have to remind the people there's so much going on in this world, and very few times can you say that you are a part of something new, something special. It feels different.
No disagreement. You have won me over. I guess it does feel a little bit different. I will tell you what, I am really looking forward to this card, particularly the main event. I'm main event heavy on this one, but I also think there's something very special to see in the co-main event that I happen to disagree with some other people's anticipation for.
Oh.
We'll get more into that as the show goes along.
I feel like that was a nice little tease. You're a TV
I
veteran.
feel like now maybe I should hand it back to you.
Okay, well,
Ariel?
thank you for that, Chael. Yes, of course, TJ Dillashaw is moving down in the main event from 135 pounds to 125 pounds. He is trying to dethrone Henry Cejudo, who won that title back in August when he dethroned the winningest champion in UFC history, Demetrius Johnson. And you're looking them squaring off at the ceremonial weigh-ins yesterday right here inside Barclays Center. The big question heading into this was, would TJ Dillashaw make weight? He's never fought at 125 as a pro MMA fighter. And as you can see, not only did he make weight, he looked good, and the intensity continued between both these men. Look at Henry Cejudo with the beard. Look at that. Now, Chael, the big question, of course, would TJ make weight, and how would he look?
Sure.
You now saw him make weight. You saw how he looked. Assess his actual body as you saw him step on the scales
All
at
right,
125.
and before I do that, if I may just back up a little bit, that was a big story, but it certainly wasn't mine. I don't really know where that came from. TJ Dillashaw in his professional career, as well as his amateur career for that matter, since he goes back to 8 years old, has never missed weight. So how that ever got created and where it came from just because he came down 10 measly pounds, I think was a false narrative to begin with.
Fair.
I will also add for you, Henry Cejudo has missed weight on 2 separate occasions at this very weight class, to the point that up until 12 months ago, he was forced to go up to 135 pounds before he could talk Dana White and company into allowing him to go back to 125 where he actually gained the championship. So that narrative was false from Jump Street. And as far as how TJ looked, he looked the same as Henry, which is fantastic, lean, hungry, ready, confident. Era, when you have two athletes that are both at their core, not pretending, not acting, not promoting, but genuinely feeling confident that they can beat the other man, there is something very special that then trickles and washes over to people like you and I and all the fans that are watching at home. That is what we have here. Both of these guys are very confident that they are going to defeat the other one tonight. No hype.
Okay, so you didn't buy the narrative that he would have trouble making weight.
No.
I believe you. What about this narrative? That he's a different TJ Dillashaw, a different fighter at 125 pounds. And I'm not saying different in a bad way, but
Sure.
perhaps quicker. Is he any different of a fighter at 125?
Okay, so you're going to have two schools of thought here, and neither one of them is totally false. But first off, if a guy sucks down 10 extra pounds, he's going to have to physiologically change his body. He's going to have to cannibalize himself in some ways, which means to give up a little bit of muscle, to give up a little bit of fat, give up a whole lot more water. What I am arguing for you is that the other side of that coin that doesn't get talked about is he is now going to be faster. That is just simple logic right there. You take 10 pounds off of somebody as they're running up a hill, they're going to get to the top of that hill a little bit faster than they would have before. That's going to be a case with TJ Dillashaw. And also, there's a byproduct that we largely see with guys that are forced to lose those extra pounds, which is they've got to practice a little bit longer. They've got to catch a little bit of a longer run in either the morning or the evening or get a separate workout altogether, but it forces them to be in better shape. So I would argue, based just on logic, that TJ will be a little bit faster. That part I for sure will be right about, but I also think I'm right when I tell you his pace is going to be just a little bit higher than TJ Dillashaw's we've seen in the past.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. You know, 10 pounds is 10 pounds, and it's not that big of a deal. But here's the thing. It's not just 10 pounds, right? Like, I've never cut weight before. I'm not a pro athlete like you are. But he's been cutting weight for 12 weeks.
Sure.
There is, a dehydration process there. There is a rehydration process. It seems like he has the best possible team around him, that they've taken this very seriously. But is it really as simple as, oh, that's another 10 pounds? At that low of a weight class, 10 pounds could be pretty drastic. It can affect you as a fighter, can it not?
Anybody at 10 pounds, I would not dismiss the losing of 10 pounds. That took a struggle. That was a discipline. That was something, as you said, he started 12 weeks ago and had to change his entire lifestyle. But it also came with things such as extra workouts and extra runs and a little bit better and healthy eating, cleaner diet that are going to now pay off. All of those pains that he went through for 12 weeks, people are trying to carry the way he looked in a weigh-in that was 36 hours ago. That is a lifetime ago in the world of rehydration. That is a ridiculous and absurd amount of time that is not even allowed in many jurisdictions and by many governing bodies. All I'm offering to you, Ara, real simple with everything I said, is just that he will absolutely be at 100%. The weight is a non-issue, and it never should have been a story that got created for two reasons. I get creative stories for promotion. That's not even interesting. Oh, a guy may miss weight and you're going to lose the whole fight. That's a ridiculous story. But I feel like the fans that have helped to support that and the people and the media members are friends of Henry Cejudo's or friends of TJ Dillashaw's. They either want to build in an excuse for TJ to lose, or they want to build in a reason why Henry shouldn't get the credit he deserves should he win. It's a built-in false narrative. The better athlete's going to win. We have to put this weight and this fakeness behind us. Both guys are bringing their skills. Everything is on the line as much as people want to build in a bedded soft fall for one of these athletes.
Fair enough. Okay, so I'll take that, and I'll say it's a non-issue at this point because he made weight and he's good and we're about to have the fight. But this storyline you cannot dismiss. The fate of the flyweights, right?
Yeah.
Because Henry Cejudo and his team believe that if they lose tonight, the flyweights are going away.
Yeah.
TJ Dillashaw has said, I'm coming down to kill the flyweights. Dana White is non-committal. He does not want to weigh in on all of this. And so now that you've heard from all the particulars, and probably Dana is the most important one, right? Because he's the decision maker, and you heard the way he didn't want to commit to it on Thursday. Do you believe that the fate of the flyweight division is on the line tonight?
I believe that that decision is already made based upon what we heard from Dana. However, with that coyness that he put out at the press conference, I thought that if you're sitting on the fence, it was 50-50 of what exactly is that decision. I will suggest for you this, that I will concede a win by Henry Dillashaw is the
Henry Cejudo.
Henry Cejudo, thank you, is the only thing that could perhaps sway that decision that's already been made, that could perhaps keep that division around. That's what I got the general feeling from, but I do need to disclose for you, I have no more information than what we saw at the press conference, and I am merely giving you my interpretation of the facial expression of Dana White. That's not a lot of evidence by me, but that was the conclusion I have.
I'm not sure if a win is enough, right? I feel like it has to be an impressive win.
Okay.
What do you
Why is
think?
that?
I don't know. I feel like Dana does want to get rid of it, and I feel like Henry needs to actually convince him that this not only is a division worth keeping, but that he is a champion worth keeping around. Because obviously if they get rid of the division, he's not a champion anymore.
I hear what you're saying. I think that there's one part of that, and I don't know that you're wrong, but I do think historically you might have some problems winning somebody over with that, only because the footage we're watching right now is Henry Cejudo taking on Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, the most accomplished 125-pound fighter of all time, who had those spectacular video game style finishes there. Do you remember the time he picked up, was it Ray Borg, put him down and transitioned into a submission? That's out of a video game.
Right.
In all my years, I've never seen that. I don't even know what to call that move. So what I'm offering for you, no, it's not just about the finish. It's about some level of excitement, and most importantly, who is he going to call out next? What is going to be next? You cannot just say at the press conference after the fight, TJ and I just gave you a wonderful fight, Dana, so keep the flyweights around. That's not the message.
Right.
That's history at that point. It has to be, what can I do for you next? And that's a piece of the puzzle that I'm not sure a young Henry Cejudo fully understands.
Really? Because I think he does understand.
Then who will he call out?
You know what he's going to do? This is where it gets confusing. He's going to call out TJ
At 135.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it sort of makes
You
the
see
whole
the
thing-
problem, though?
It's very conflicting.
Okay,
yes.
you do see the problem.
He says everything right leading up to that point, but then he talks about 135, and then I get confused. We are obviously going to be talking about that particular storyline all night long. It is very interesting. It is fascinating. I can't get enough of it because there's many different layers to it. But let's put a pin on that because in a matter of seconds, we're going to be joined by the last person to headline an event here at Barclays Center. His name is Ragin Ally Aquinta. Unless we forget, back in April of last year, he fought a man named Khabib Nurmagomedov on 24 hours notice, and he took him to the distance. They went all the way. In the end, he dropped the decision, but in many people's eyes, including myself and Chaels, it was a moral victory. But guess what? Ragin Al doesn't believe in moral victories. He came back in December, and he defeated a man who had been talking a whole lot of smack about him, Kevin Lee, Motown Phenom in Milwaukee. And guess what? You know what we learned? Same old Al ain't a bad person to be. He is same old Al, and he's joining us on set right here and now. Ally Aquinta, how are you?
That's quite the introduction.
He's fired up. I got to just
that's
warn you
awesome.
before you get started. This is Errol in rare form. He's like a kid on a big holiday morning, but
He's
but
on
please
fire.
enjoy.
He's on fire.
This
No,
is a
thank
historic night, Al.
Yeah,
ESPN.
absolutely.
This is
Yeah.
a big deal.
This is
You
huge.
know, you can't often say that you're a part of history. Now you're a part of history because you came on our show.
you. I appreciate you having me. This is great.
And
This
look
is
at you.
great.
Wow, look at this suit.
Trying,
Where did
you
we
know,
get
we're
this?
Trying. We're trying.
I saw his teammates earlier,
Yes.
Gian Villante specifically, who was giving him a hard time, saying he sold out. I said, why do you say that? He goes, well, look how nice he looks. That's a compliment. You can't insult him for looking nice, coming on TV to the big show in his backyard. Come on.
Well, it's interesting because I spoke to John and Chris earlier, and they were saying the same thing to me about you selling out because you're known to be somewhat of a maverick. You march to the beat of your own drum. Why are your friends saying that you sold out all of a sudden?
Volante's just mad. He can't make fun of me for the way I dress anymore, and I dress better than him. So now he's making fun of me that I dress better than him.
Is this all a result of beating Kevin Lee? Has your life changed as a result? Now you got new clothes?
No, not at all. Obviously that you gotta. We're on ESPN now. You gotta play
Yes.
the part, you know.
I
but
appreciate that.
it's dressing nice. Nothing flashy, outlandish, crazy. Just being myself.
No
and
fur
just-
coats.
Yeah, definitely.
Leopard.
There's no leopard walking into the arena. You won't see me walking in like that.
I'm wondering, have you ever been back to this arena since that fight?
I haven't. And
This is the
to
first
be
time?
honest, I didn't even really look at the arena that night when I fought. It just happened so fast. You're just in and out so quick. You know, it's a nice arena.
What do you remember from that night? I mean, it all happened in a blur, right?
It happened
Those 24 hours.
so quick.
When you're
so
coming back
quick.
here now and you're allowing yourself to digest it, do you have any memories that come back?
Yeah, walking out. That was the most people I've ever had in an arena for my walkout. That was my first main event, first 5-round fight. It was all so new to me, and it all happened so fast. I tried my best to just kind of savor the moment. I remember telling myself, take it all in, and but it just happened so fast, so quick, you know.
You've been poking Conor McGregor. Have you been seeing this?
Yes.
Chael is known to poke people online. I don't know if you know this. Sometimes he claims it's not really him, but, you know, we know it's him.
On with the question.
We know his brand. Anyhow, I want to know from Chael, what do you think of him poking Conor and his approach to things? Is it working?
I love it, and I love Al's approach too. That he just wants to fight somebody higher up in the rankings, and I like what you said to him. I think that was very fair, and he deserves that. The story after you fought Khabib drove me insane because the story largely was, Khabib had an off night, and that offended me as somebody that
Sure.
likes Al. I didn't think that was fair, and I thought your win over Kevin Lee really helped to set that record straight, which was, no, that wasn't an off night. That was simply Khabib's hardest fight to date, and Khabib weighed in and backs me up on that. Khabib actually went to social media after Al's fight with Kevin Lee and said, that's the toughest guy I've ever been in there with. That's what happened.
This is the way I view, and I couldn't agree more. By the way, he has defended you a few times because I've said that I thought that Khabib was playing possum in that fight, trying to do the old rope-a-dope Muhammad Ali, but this man gets very fired up when I throw out that theory. So this is all very true. I just want to reiterate that
Thank
point.
you.
I feel like there are two scenarios at play here for you next. Dustin Poirier or Conor McGregor? And these are just my theories based on the way things will shake out. Khabib, Tony Ferguson, where does that leave Conor? They've talked about Conor, Dustin. I don't think the fans really want to see that all that much because we saw it again. You've been poking Conor. Conor's responding to you, which makes me think he's somewhat interested. What do you think? Do you think it's either one of those two guys? And if so, who has a better chance of being your next opponent?
I think Conor's, he knows the game better than most, and I think we have a common opponent in Khabib. So I think if, in his mind, if he can go out there and put on a dominant performance against me, maybe that Khabib hadn't. Obviously, he was dominant, but he couldn't get the finish.
Right.
Maybe there's a storyline to the winner of that getting the rematch. You know what I mean? So I think I'm kind of going with that. I think we both I think are deserving of a rematch with another big win. I beat Kevin Lee. Obviously, he could be just as strong or stronger than Khabib, So I think I'm right there. I'll be glad to fight any guy ranked above me and earn my rematch with Khabib.
Are your last two performances, though, a little bit of a hindrance to getting the Conor fight? I mean, quite frankly, aren't you a little bit too tough to possibly make Conor come to the table and go, yeah, I'll put it all on the line and go fight him? Isn't that kind of, at least in theory, what keeps Conor at bay?
It could be, but I don't see Conor as a person to shy away from a tough fight. I think he knows that that's really the fight to make to get his rematch. He said he'll fight the person he's supposed to fight, or whoever the UFC gives him. I think that the UFC should throw my name his way, and I think it'd be a great fight. But I do think I'm coming away with the victory, and I'm getting that rematch with Khabib, and it'll be a different story on the full training camp.
Okay, so that was actually my next question. Have you actually talked to the UFC about your interest in fighting Conor? And if so, what did they say?
Yeah, they got to wait to see how this whole thing shakes out with the Nevada State Athletic Commission. They're both going before the Athletic Commission on the 29th, and I think it's the 29th.
Yep.
And I guess however long they get suspended or however that works out, they're going to figure out from there. At least that's what they're telling me.
Okay, so as of right now, you don't have your next fight.
Yeah, no fight. I'm kind of imagining it to be in like April, May.
Okay.
So we'll see, but that's kind of how I'm feeling about it.
So, Chael, we were just talking about the state of the flyweights. I want to get Al's take on what's at stake in this main event. Henry Cejudo versus TJ Dillashaw. You're very active online, so I know that you read things. What do you think? Is the flyweight division on the line here tonight? If Henry loses, are they gone?
There's a great chance that there is. A lot of the flyweights have been let go. The flyweights I've heard that are coming off a win are maybe given the opportunity to go up to 135. It kind of sounds like, the 125ers are on their way out. I hope that it's not. But they are building a Performance Institute in China.
Yeah.
And the flyweights would be huge in China. So I think if they're really trying to break into that market, maybe they'll keep it around and they're just narrowing the field, which is what I'm hoping. I'm hoping they're keeping just maybe a few names in the division.
Lest we forget, not that long ago, they got rid of your division, the lightweights. Remember that?
No.
Josh Thompson, Eve Edwards. You don't remember those days?
No, I actually don't remember that.
You don't
They did
remember
away
when
with
they
155 pounds?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
I'd
What
say
year?
around
2005?
2005?
No, before that. Yeah, around 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have done this in the past. Get rid of a division, let it sort of develop, and then bring it back. And now, look, it's kind of funny. The lightweight's probably the deepest division in the sport, right? There's probably no other division that's better than the lightweights. Who do you like in this matchup?
It's such a close matchup. They're both so even in a lot of things, but I think TJ Dillashaw he's more of a complete mixed martial artist. I think Henry's wrestling in a wrestling match would be better, but in an MMA fight, I think they're a little more evenly matched. I think that if it does go to the ground, each is going to have a tough time holding the other down. So I think even if there is a takedown, it'll come right back to the feet. And I think on the feet, Henry has improved tremendously, but I think TJ is just on another level. I think he's a couple steps ahead, and he just keeps progressing to a similar level of Henry Cejudo.
I got one more for Al, if you don't mind. I love to talk to other fighters, especially established ones like you and you, about Greg Hardy, because let's be honest, if he wasn't Greg Hardy, former NFL player, he's not in the co-main event. How do you feel about him being in the co-main event of this historic card?
Yeah, it doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't sit well with me for someone who's been in this sport for so long, put in the amount of work that I've put in, for someone to come in on their third professional fight, be thrust into this ESPN's spotlight with the history that he has with domestic violence. it doesn't sit well with me, but I understand that it is going to bring more eyes in. It'll bring in a tremendous audience from the NFL and football. So, you know, it is what it is, and although it doesn't sit well with me, it's going to be.
Sure, of course. They're looking at highlights of him right now. Based on what you've seen,
he's a strong, powerful, athletic guy that is a little bit, a little bit behind on some of the techniques, but I think he's going to catch up. Someone with that pedigree I don't know who he's training with, but if he finds the
ATT.
right. Oh, so yeah, there
you go. Dean
He's,
Thomas is
it's just
coach.
a matter of time. So I think they're going to give him the right opponents, and he'll be up there. He'll have a great fan base and bring a lot of eyes to the sport.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate you stopping
That's
by.
as real as it gets, by the way.
I know, it was incredible.
If we could make this a regular thing,
yes.
That was great. That was really great,
I
Al.
love it.
Thank you.
Thank
By
you.
the way, you didn't sell out on the clothing. You bought. You let Vellante know that you went and bought some new clothes.
That's right.
It's not a sell.
That's right,
You didn't get
Vellante.
paid for
You hear this, Vellante?
Huh? You're the one that had to break out the credit card. Come on, he's looking at it all
And
wrong.
tonight, just a fan?
Yeah.
No cornering?
No, we don't have anybody. I'm just
Okay.
a fan. I love it. I love coming here and just watching fights. And
Bunch of New York. We got Gregor Gillespie, right?
Yep, bunch of
Some guys making debuts.
Dennis Bermudez,
Yeah, Bermudez.
going up to 155.
That's
I'm
right.
interested. He's an animal, so I'm looking forward to that fight. And yeah, great night of fights. It's gonna be fun.
Long Island in the house. Al Quinta, one of the very best lightweights, joining us. Thank you so much, Al. We appreciate it, and good luck getting that next fight. Hopefully it's against Conor McGregor. Sign me up for that.
Sign me up.
Yes. Same old Al. Not a bad place to be. Same old Al. Long Island's own Al Iaquinta. Okay, we talked about some of the other fights on the card. Talked about Greg Hardy. Here are some other fights on the main card. Greg Hardy, Alan Crowder. Gregor Gillespie, just talked about him. Up-and-coming stud wrestler from New York, going up against Yancy Medeiros. Joseph Benavidez versus Dustin Ortiz. Paige Van Zandt versus Rachel Ostovich. And, of course, Glover Teixeira taking on Carl Roberson, who is moving up from 185 to 205, taking this fight on just a little over a week's notice. So a big spot for Carl Roberson, and that all kicks off at 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. History, Chael, history. Great stuff.
Right.
Great stuff from Al. Do you agree with his assessment on Greg the fighter? Are you high on Greg, like based on what you've seen? And, of course,
Hardy.
Yeah,
Right,
Greg the
Greg
fighter,
Hardy,
yeah. We've seen probably off the top of my head, his 3 pro fights haven't gone 60 seconds. So I'm going to guess, just if I do the math, 2 minutes and 30 total in 3 fights. Based on what you've seen, are you impressed? Is there something there?
I think there is an athleticism. I thought that Al was very nice, very fair, but possibly on the side of generous. I am not seeing the great potential in a fighter for Greg Hardy that Al is seeing, but I do think, and he won me over a little bit. He said some things that was hard for me to disagree with when he said, look, this is a big, strong, athletic guy. Well, that's true, and I didn't even know how big Greg Hardy was until the weigh-in show yesterday when he stepped on. Was he second or third to the scale, and he was 264 pounds, meaning he cut some weight. I didn't realize he was that big of a guy. He's a little taller than I knew him, and he's built the right way. He does not look like he walks around at 300 pounds. He's a very good-looking young athlete. So I did like that, and I think if he does have a work ethic and a dedication, he has shown us in previous sports, specifically being football, that he can make it to the highest of levels. So perhaps I am being a little short-sighted. Even at this footage right here, he looks very aggressive. He's got a very good pace. He knows distance very well. You'll see him putting his left hand out there constantly, similar to something John Jones does, just to measure your opponent. That's a real skill. There's something special there. But I'm also seeing a brawler that is very hand-happy on his feet. I'm also seeing a guy that is putting his foot down on the gas pedal and not reserving energy for the later rounds. I think that he's very raw.
Here's my big question about Greg Hardy. What happens when the going gets tough? We've never seen him get rocked. We've never seen him get punched, really, right? We don't know if he likes to be punched. And that may sound weird to the audience who don't follow the sport, but there are some, that was always the knock on Brock Lesnar. He doesn't like to get punched. So we don't know that about him.
That's right. And I'll tell you this, from a point of psychology, Errol, whenever we can identify something, a position we have yet to see an athlete in, we will then also declare that as a weakness for the athlete. Well, yeah, he hasn't been punched, meaning almost as, well, once he gets punched, he'll fall apart. No, we don't know that.
Right.
He may flip a switch and he comes on even stronger. Well, we haven't seen him in the late rounds, which is meant to sound as though if he makes it to the later rounds, that he won't be able to hold up. That's just not a reality. It's just a question mark. We don't know. So stylistically and strategically, as some footage is getting out of him, we would assume that his opponent sat down with his trainer and coaches and team and have decided, let's put him in some of these areas he hasn't been to. That would make sense. but it would not be an automatic default button that we could count on the fact that he's going to fall apart should he be there.
Right. Sticklers like myself make a big deal of the fact of, he's the co-main event. You know, Al talked about that a little bit as well. Are they doing a disservice to him by putting him in the co-main, or if you're not the main, it doesn't really matter where you are on the card? And let's not forget, this is a guy who's played in big college football games,
Sure.
big NFL games. He's used to the big stage. That being said, it's a little different here
Sure.
inside the octagon.
Well, look, I think if you can come over here with a big name, I've always understood and supported your placement, your good placement on the card. Whether it was James Toney, whether it was Brock Lesnar, whether it was CM Punk, or whether it's Greg Hardy. I actually get it and I support that. Perhaps I didn't understand how big of a name Greg Hardy was. To me, he does not fall in the same category of a CM Punk, of a Brock Lesnar, of a James Toney. Perhaps I am wrong and I will stand corrected. I don't follow football very closely. But in that part of it, I think that he is having to deal with some pressures, and I don't think that he is the draw that they could have had with a Cowboy Cerrone. By example, fully admitting, perhaps I'm a little out of touch on that one.
Although Cowboy Cerrone is the headliner of the ESPN portion
Yes.
of this card,
And
so
by the
that's
way,
a
will you-
massive spot for him.
I didn't want to cut you off. By the way, and you're exactly correct to say that. Help me out on that. Am I wrong? Is Greg Hardy, in comparison to, say, a CM Punk, that everybody, at least in a market, knew who he was? Would everybody in football know who Greg is?
Yes, Greg
Okay.
was a big star in football. His last game was around 4 or 5 years ago, so it's been a while, and you know the sport moves along so fast. Here's the thing. If we did one of those, what is it, a Venn diagram?
Sure.
Venn diagram? What do they call it?
No
Venn
one
di-
knows for sure.
Okay, no one will ever know.
No one knows what you're thinking for sure.
Okay, so if they did one of those diagrams, there's a lot more pro wrestling fans who are MMA fans than NFL fans who are MMA
Okay.
fans. So a lot more people in this building probably know who CM Punk is than Greg Hardy, if you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
So that's why in our world, Punk was a bigger deal.
Got it.
The general sports world, Greg Hardy is a bigger deal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a big compliment to him.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't want to shortchange Alan Crowder, and don't give me your pick, but very quickly, you like this guy, right?
Yeah, I do. Well, and I saw him fight one time. He fought Justin Willis. He fought him out in Brazil. It was the same night, just by example, that Max Holloway fought Jose Aldo for the second time.
Right.
Yes, I did. And even though he lost, and he lost decisively, and he lost quickly, but there was good moments in that contest and that until that happened. I really thought that Crowder came out there and showed some athleticism. I thought he moved well. I wish he would have kept his hands up a little bit more. And in this case tonight, I don't want to see him make this a boxing match. I want to see him get his hands on Greg Hardy. I think Greg Hardy is a very strong athlete with a very fast start. Those kind of guys, a great way to slow him down is to just come in and tie him up. In the boxing world, by example, if you do that, the referee will step in and separate you. It is so effective at stopping a striker that in the world of boxing, which is only strikers, the referee will force you to not do that position. So in mixed martial arts, you really want to get to that position, try to buy yourself some minutes.
Who wins?
I like Crowder in the fight. I think it's going to
Wow.
be an upset. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
I do.
huge.
And the one fight that I saw him in that I'm assessing this off of, he actually lost, and he lost very quickly. But up until those moments, I saw something there. And I'm just not seeing that same thing from Greg Hardy with those opponents. So it's not a wonderful focus pool that I'm drawing from, but I do think that Crowder has a good opportunity if he can deal with the nerves, something I would predict Hardy, even though less experienced in this specific sport,
Great
will
point.
deal with a little more handily.
Yeah, Crowder has never been in this spot on any stage,
Sure.
right? So this is all
He's
very
fighting
new
in front
to
of
him.
Ariel Helwani.
I know.
Ariel Helwani
On
will be
a
watching this fight
historic
live.
night.
Could you imagine the
Historic.
nerves?
History.
Wow.
History, historic. It's all
Really
going down.
something.
I just want to repeat that. Chael P just picked Alan Crowder to beat Greg Hardy. You just saw the line right over there. He's a big underdog,
Yeah.
so do whatever you got to do. Alan Crowder, Chael P. Now, let's move along to another fight that has been discussed a lot heading into tonight. Rachel Ostovich
Sure.
against someone that you know.
My teammate.
Paige Van Zandt. So you have great insight into Paige. We have not seen Paige Van Zandt since January of last year. 2 surgeries on her arm. She got married. She had the first surgery. It did not go well. She had a second surgery. Thankfully, it went well. She's back at 125 pounds. Didn't go well for her in her last fight at 125, but this is clearly the better weight class for her. What could you tell us about what you've seen from Paige in the gym leading up to this
Is
fight?
it all right to sit like this? Is my knee
You know,
offensive to you? I'm a
not
lot more
for me.
comfortable. Is that okay? I want to make good TV.
Someone's about to tell me in
Can
my
I do
ear
it?
if they don't
All right,
like
I'm going to
this.
go with it. Here's what I
Okay.
want to tell you about Paige Van Zandt. First off, she
You got
also
the
moved
green
up
light,
a
by
weight
the way.
class. Yes, I don't know if you talked about that. Maybe you
I
did.
did,
but yeah,
yes.
she moved
Do you
up
not
10
listen
pounds.
when I
Well, that
speak?
was very helpful, though. Look, Errol, she was cutting a lot of weight. It was taking a significant amount of focus. Now, she still had to diet to get down to 125. This wasn't some cushion to go out and go crazy. In part, there was still a very much of a lifestyle and a dedication and a focus, but it did allow her to be happier. When I would see Paige and say hello to her in the morning for strength and conditioning with Coach Dave, she's now got a smile on her face. That's something that we didn't see before. before. She broke her arm, and man, this was a bad break. She went in and got surgery. It didn't fix. This wasn't like a little kid that gets a cast on and then has all the classmates sign the cast. It wasn't like that. It didn't work. I mean, this arm was so bad. She went in a total of 3 times. But the whole time, Ariel, she was focused on her return to fighting. When her arm was banged up, she was working her legs. She was doing the squat. She was running on the treadmill. She was doing anything she could do, knowing that tonight was eventually going to come.
So it's interesting because just moments ago we were talking about those 10 extra pounds, right? And how they could or may not affect TJ Dillashaw. In this case, adding those 10 extra pounds might prove to make a world of difference for Paige, right?
It certainly has leading into this fight. I can just tell you her general happiness, her general spirits, her general outlook on life has been a lot more pleasant. She's also been in the gym even more. Now, she was a hard worker to start with, but she is starting to catch that second and third workout a day just because she has the energy to do it. It just simply comes down to the calories within her body, and I've seen her make the most of it.
And you know, I would
and
also...
I'm biased. I'm coming to you guys very biased. I'm not even making a pick here in the fight or speaking against Rachel. I'm just telling you I had some insider knowledge.
Of course.
On Paige
No, this is
I
great.
saw her so I'm just trying to share it.
By the way, you talk about her general happiness and just being in a sort of good mood all the time. Probably could chalk that up to Austin Vanderford, her new husband.
Sure.
They just got married. I mean, don't shortchange the guy. In fact, I believe that OCLP over here could be called the bad guy or the American gangster. He could also be called matchmaker.
Cupid.
Yes.
Set that one up.
Have you ever seen Fiddler on the Roof?
No.
Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a
Sing
match.
it! Sing
Buy
it, Helwani!
me a car, find me a catch. Tell them.
That's
Chael.
beautiful.
How did you do it?
I didn't know that skill about you. All right, well, real simple story, but Paige had come down to a local show we were putting on in Portland, little amateur show, and she had 2 tickets. She was supposed to bring her cousin. Little VIP section, seats with her name on, the whole bit, right, for Paige. She comes down, cousin doesn't show up. About 3 minutes later, I get a call from Austin saying, hey, I'm out back. I got no money, and I got no ticket. Can you help me out? I said, I think I can. Call Paige real fast. Can Austin come sit with you? Sure, set him up.
And then
They left together that night. They've been inseparable ever since. Now they're married. The rest is history.
Unbelievable. Were you invited to the wedding?
I was invited. I couldn't make it. I was at an event. We were covering an event somewhere. I think I was with you the day they got married. But they got married just recently, August, I believe.
Yeah, September, I do believe. I never got an invitation. I feel like I should have gotten one. But anyway.
That irritates me that you knew the date when I was invited to the wedding.
Actually, I know the exact date.
The things that go on in that brain of yours,
September 29th.
I mean, you've got a lot of info in that brain of yours.
You were at Musasi McDonald in San Jose.
That is where I was.
I didn't want to correct you. I wasn't there. I didn't want to correct you for the sake of the story. But yeah, that was. I have a weird memory when it comes to
that. That is actually incredible. That's remarkable.
Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. All right.
Sing it.
Yes. Okay. Now, that's not the only interesting fight on this card. I mentioned the ESPN portion of the prelim. So that's okay. Let me just break this down for everyone because I think that people get confused. 6:30 to 8, you've got the ESPN Plus portion of the prelims. 8 to 10, you've got the ESPN Television portion of the prelims. And then 10 to 1, you've got the ESPN Plus portion of the main card. The headliner of the ESPN Television portion of the prelims is Alex Hernandez versus Donald Cerrone, and this is a phenomenal fight. You can make a very strong case that this is the second best fight on this card. They have been going back and forth all week long, and what's so interesting about this fight, one of the many interesting things about this fight, it's that it's the return of Donald Cerrone to the lightweight division, and he's kind of singing a different tune these days. He's saying he's a different guy. He's going for the belt. He's changed things up. Well, our own Brett Okamoto actually traveled to the famous BMF ranch to learn more about this new cowboy. Here's that.
Where did the name BMF Ranch come from?
You know, big cattle ranch, big kind of, you have all the land, what do you do with it? And I said, well, we don't raise any kind of livestock. We do train and raise bad mother. So it just stuck. Can't pretend that I'm gonna be here 10 more years. Maybe I got 5 years left in the sport. Set a ton of records, things that concreted my legacy, but now it's time to get the belt.
When did that happen? When did the belt start to have meaning to you?
This last fight. This last fight it did. Everyone always say, oh, you have a kid's gonna change your life. I'm like, it's so cliche you guys say it, like I don't feel anything until then.
Jackson Cerrone is 4 months old. Danger is his middle name.
I don't know if he'll ever be old enough to see me compete and like understand what's going on, right? I want to keep fighting to where he's there, like, Dad, right? Like that's what I want. I want to look across the cage. I got this, mother. Watch Dad.
How will you feel if you come up short? Winningest fighter in
Oh,
UFC
man, yeah,
history,
see.
but you're not a champion.
Yeah, there's no coming up short. It's not gonna happen.
Damn right. Coming after that belt, Khabib. I'm coming. Cowboys back.
This dude, Khabib, I've been trying to fight him for years. 4 or 5 fights we've had. Every time he's pulled out. You know, some injury, this, that. When they get Cowboy, they're the ones who say no, 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 no. Like this last fight, we went through 5 opponents saying no, 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 no. 2 of them called me and said, absolutely not. I'm the best in the world. I know it. And I'm gonna get the gold, man. You're talking about, what if you fall up short? I'm not gonna fall up short. It's just time. It's time to go get it, hold that belt for as long as I can, man, and then bow out.
Joined on set now by Brett Okamoto, who traveled to the BMF ranch to talk to Donald Cerrone. Brett, I have to say, I can listen to that all day. It is riveting stuff. Phenomenal job by you, because we've been watching Cerrone for so long. That's not the same guy.
No.
I mean, everything he's always talked about, I don't care about the belt, I don't care about this. It's amazing to see at this age how different he is.
Yep.
You were there with him all day. You spent time, not just on camera, off camera. What was your takeaway about this new Donald Cerrone?
I love the story, and it's not just because I went down there and I told it. It's such a great story. A guy who I asked him when I was down there, the way in which you've operated your career, you know, your management, your teammates, your coaches occasionally telling you, Donald, don't take this fight. You're on a 4-fight win streak. You're on a 5-fight win streak. You could win the belt. You could be in a title fight pretty soon. Why take this fight? Why turn around and fight somebody on 2 weeks' notice, 3 weeks' notice, as we all come to know that Donald Cowboy loves to do? And he said, I don't care. This is why we're here. This is why we do it. We take fights. This is why we're in this business. And it was just him, you know, and it frustrated a lot of people around him, but they just had to deal with it. And then last fight camp, before he beat Mike Perry, he looked around at his team and he said, you know what, it's time to go for the belt. And everybody sort of perked their heads up, looked at him and said, really, it's time? And he said, yeah, it's time, let's go get it.
And it's interesting because around that time he left Jackson Wink after all these years, became a dad, so a lot of changes in his life. But here's the part that I don't understand. So it all sounds well and good. However, he's fighting Alex Hernandez, who is 11 years younger than him, who's a stud, who doesn't have a name, let's be honest, but is really, really tough. So it doesn't really fit that narrative of I'm going for the belt, because in many respects, it's almost a step back for Donald. Why is he doing this?
It's quite ironic, right?
Yes.
Well, if you heard him in that piece, he said that he was offered 5 different opponents. He said yes to all of them. Some of them are bigger names than Alex Hernandez. They all turned him down. And so he said, you know what? I need to prove to the UFC, one, that I can make it back down to 155 pounds, something he hadn't done in 3 years, and then I'm still successful there. If I beat a guy, yeah, maybe the casual fans don't know who Alexander Hernandez is yet, but the UFC brass does. And if I go down and beat that guy, well, then I can start asking for those big fights, and they're going to set me up in those big fights, because now that storyline is there. I'm back at that weight class, and then we'll set up another big fight to get me to that title.
There's also a history of that, Errol. I'll remind you, but Daniel Cormier went into his first world title fight against John Jones, coming off a win over a debuting Patrick Cummins. So
Okay.
it does work. I hear your ability to take on those names, but if you've already got an established name, sometimes all you have to do is win.
Okay, so I like the story, but that's in fact false. He fought Patrick Cummins at 170, then fought Dan Henderson at UFC 173.
Right.
And then was going to fight John Jones, and then Jones. So there was the Dan Henderson fight.
That's right, but he fought Daniel Cormier, Pat Cummins, who was debuting, leading into his fight with John Jones. You're saying there was one in between, I concede.
Okay, fair enough, splitting hairs. Are you buying the new Cerrone gimmick? Do you believe him when he says, okay, I care about the belt now, I'm going to go. Are you buying this?
Yes. And the reason you saw me, him and Ha, gentlemen, is because I just don't know if it's a new gimmick. I've known Donald for a long time. We were the WEC together. We had great memories, but that was a meaningful amount of time ago. We used to cut weight in the saunas together, be trying to figure out how we were going to buy dinner for the team later that night, right? It's just a different life, but I just don't see this as a gimmick. I think that this is a guy who's wanted to be champion and maybe didn't put his full focus on it, but this is a guy who would generally span over 2 different weight classes, anybody at any time.
Well, hey, let me ask you this, Chael, because what do you think? What do you make of the father aspect of it? Because his team and he did tell me that when he was in Denver, that was the first fight since he's been a new father. He walked out. They showed him a photo of his son in cowboy boots, cowboy hat, all the whole 9 yards. He got really emotional in the locker room. Then he walked out, kissed him. And then he had the performance of his life. Do you think that becoming a father can really change that and maybe give him something that he didn't have in the past?
Yeah, I buy that too. And that was a very handsome look, by the way. The young man wearing the full getup I thought was very great. But yeah, I believe him. I thought there was real passion when he was sitting down and telling you, Brett, hey, I want to do this long enough that my young man can not only watch, but cheer for me, feel the nerves, and know what's going on. I want him to be proud of me. I thought there was something special additional to that.
So I don't want to necessarily compare this fight to, say, Darren Till versus Tyron Woodley, but that's the comparison that comes to mind, if only for this. Darren Till was a young stud coming up who was on a great winning streak, and the UFC was behind him, and then they kind of thrust him early against someone like Tyron Woodley. Didn't go his way, obviously. This one could go that way in the sense that Alex Hernandez is a young stud who's coming up, who's looking good. Does this feel like a little too soon for Alexander Hernandez, who, by the way, doesn't seem to be uncomfortable in the spotlight, press conferences and whatnot? But this is the debut. This is Barclays. He's never fought in front of a stage like this, in front of an arena like this. Is it too soon for Alex Hernandez?
I certainly don't think so, and neither do the odds makers. And Vegas doesn't always get it right, but they're usually a pretty good barometer. And the last time I checked, Alexander Hernandez is favored.
What?
Favored in this fight
That
to
surprises
defeat
me.
Donald Cerrone. And I think it's, Chael, when we were doing the weigh-in show yesterday, you mentioned that you liked the line that Alexander said at the press conference, that he's not going to respect the air that Donald Cerrone breathes. I thought that was a great line, but I think there was something genuine to it. That is the way he fights. He doesn't respect your space. He gets into you very hard, and Donald Cerrone cutting down to 155 pounds for the first time in 3 years, I think that could be a difficult fighting style for him, because once he gets that momentum going, it's very hard to take it back from him.
And Aaron, you bring up Tyron Woodley versus Darren Till. I would see that example, but also offer you one which was Darren Till versus Cowboy Cerrone himself. And I think the thing that happened to Cowboy in that fight, where he took on a guy who didn't have that big name, hadn't been on TV a whole bunch, there wasn't a lot of footage of. One thing that happened to him is I think he got his eyes open to say, my goodness, these rankings don't always matter. That guy standing across from me in unarmed combat is somebody I need to take very seriously. I think that previous stumble and skidding of his knee by Cowboy Cerrone perhaps is going to prepare him to take on the younger Hernandez later tonight.
And the other thing about Cowboy, it's always been up here for him, right? Sometimes he can have the best training camp in the world, but back in the locker room, moments before the fight, something happens, and you never know what you're going to get. So maybe the fact that he's not the co-main event and lower on the card, maybe that helps him here this evening. Okay, guys, I need a pick. Brett, start with you. Who do you got?
It's really one of those head and heart things for me. My head says Alex Hernandez, but my heart says Cowboy Cerrone. I'm going to go with the heart tonight. I think Cowboy gets it done.
I am not going to speak. I'm going to say I 100% want those words that he just gave. That's where I'm at, too. I'm also feeling that it is probably Hernandez's time, but my heart is going with the Cowboy.
A little over a year ago, Alexander Hernandez was a mortgage loan officer. Said, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm going to try to become a UFC fighter. Now here he is fighting Donald Cerrone at Barclays Center in the first ESPN card. It's pretty amazing. All right, other fights on the card. It's a pretty good one. We've got a lot of interesting fights coming up. It all kicks off at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, again, on ESPN+. You're looking at some of them over here. I just want to point out mine, and then I'll allow you guys. As far as the one that really kind of sticks out from this list, Gregor Gillespie versus Yancy Medeiros intrigues me greatly. Brett, what do you like?
Yeah, you stole mine. Gregor Gillespie is one. I said this yesterday. One of the best fighters that you haven't heard of. I'm talking about the viewers out there. I'm sure some of you have, but he's a guy who rides under the radar because he doesn't talk too much. But how about Jeff Neal? Jeff Neal's a very athletic welterweight. He hits hard. 2-0 in the UFC, but he says, I won't consider myself a UFC fighter until I have 3 wins in the UFC.
Interesting.
So, hey,
Why
maybe
3?
the guy will become a UFC fighter tonight.
Why 3?
I think it has to do with, he feels like that's the magic number where you get to stay around.
Okay.
You get to stick around. If you only have 2, you're always up on the chopping block, but he feels like if he wins his first 3 fights, then he's here to stay.
Chael, I know you like Gillespie as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. I wasn't very interested in this fight. I didn't think there was a whole lot to see here. In fact, if I've had any frustration, I've almost had a scratching of the head moment going, hey, does Gregor Gillespie have an uncle or an aunt working in the office? Why is he getting brought up with such favorable competition? I also think that this is a very favorable matchup. However, Yancy has convinced me otherwise as of late. He knows this is going to be a hard fight. He knows what he's getting into. He knows he's going to give up positions. He just happens to believe that he is tough enough to hang in there, find his way back to his feet, or maybe even have to make it in between rounds, and then he can be back where he wants to be with Gregor.
Okay, so forget about the matchups. Are you high on Gillespie as a fighter?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's why I don't know why we're bringing him along at a snail's pace.
Okay. Maybe they just want to give him, favorable matchups to prop him up a little bit.
You would do that with a guy that has star potential. You're talking about a guy that's as fun to listen to as watching paint dry. That's where I'm confused on it. You either want him or you don't want him. If you want to wash the guy out because he can't sell any tickets, and Lord knows he's going to do nothing to change that. He's one of those stubborn guys that just doesn't get what we're doing here. Get him out of here by giving him somebody a little bit tougher than the ones they've been putting in front of him.
Interesting, yeah. When I spoke to him at the media day on Thursday, he said, before we start, don't ask me any questions on Yancy Medeiros. I said, is there something wrong with Yancy Medeiros? No, I just don't talk about my opponents. That's my thing.
You've been interviewing fighters a long time. You ever get that?
Never. I've heard the, like, I don't want to talk trash. I don't want to call people out. I've never heard the, I'm not going to answer a question on my opponent.
Sure.
What are we doing here?
What are we doing? Why are we here?
Yeah.
Right.
It's the prize fighting business. At the end of the day, you need to get people emotionally invested in you, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, that's the story for the rest of the card. Brett, great stuff. Also want to talk about the Joanne Calderwood fight. That's an interesting one coming up because I think that this 125-pound division is kind of interesting. The 125-pound division for the males is on the chopping block. The female one is much more shallow, but yet here we are. They're the ones on the come-up. Yeah. Valentina Shevchenko is the champion. Joanne Calderwood has 2 victories since moving up to 125. She's fighting a UFC debutante, Ariane Lipski, who is called the Violence Queen, coming out of Brazil. Joanne likes to do this thing before all her fights where she shaves half of her head. I am weirdly fascinated by this pre-fight ritual. I don't know why. I have this fascination with barbershops and then fighting
Really?
and then the fact that she does it. I don't know. So you know what? I said I want to actually witness this pre-fight ritual. So I found a barbershop in Brooklyn, New York. We went with JoJo to see it all go down, and let me tell you, it was better than I expected. Here's a look at that experience. Part of this new JoJo 2.0, does that mean no more shaved head on the side and all that? What are we doing?
No, I'm going to shave it.
American
I've just
silver.
not found a great girl that can shave it. The girl in Glasgow was awesome.
Well, let me tell you, Brooklyn, they got a lot of great barbers in Brooklyn. I feel like,
Yeah, maybe I should just wait till fight week.
you know, you're like in the mecca of great barbers.
I have a question. Are you going to be there?
I will be there.
Maybe we should go together.
Oh, that'd be fun. Get a haircut together. You asked me last week, find you a barbershop in Brooklyn for your customary haircut.
Yes.
Guess what? I found you the best barbershop in Brooklyn, maintained here in Williamsburg. Are you excited?
I'm very excited and very, very, very pleased with your...
My choice?
Yes.
Yes. And this is a ritual for you, right? Before every fight, you get your hair done, shave the side of the head, design, the whole bit.
Yes.
We're
Fight
gonna do
week
it.
especially.
Okay, we're gonna do it.
First time you did it, what was the meaning or inspiration behind it?
I saw it on a girl actually just passing by, and then I was like, that would kind of look good. And then with my kind of style of lifestyle, I was like, yeah, I could rock that.
What did your mom say the first time she saw you do it?
She was like, are you crazy? Shaving your hair? It's funny how my cauliflower ear is on the shave bit. Obviously before, when I got it done, I didn't have my cauliflower ear.
Okay.
Just over the years it's progressed. Come fight week, it's like pretty boring for me because I love training and pretty much takes over my life, and then I come to fight week and it's like training once a day and maybe not as intense.
Does doing this kind of help take your mind off of it?
Yeah,
Gives you something else to think about for an hour or so, right?
yeah. Usually it does, but you're here and you're asking me
I
questions.
know. I'm totally ruining the experience. What do you like better, knockout or submission? Like, what's like the feeling?
I don't know, a submission felt pretty damn good though, my last fight. I mean, I overcame a big thing in that fight, you know. I was like on the way to the mat thinking, oh, here we go. I did not think this was going to happen, and then I overcame that in the fight, and that was the biggest thing for me. What do you think?
I love it. What do you think?
I love it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Feel good?
Are you picking up the belt?
Absolutely.
Chael, how much fun was that? Did you love that?
Ariel, Even Babe Ruth struck out sometimes.
What?
I mean, I hope you're not hard on yourself for thinking this is going to be captivating for fans to watch somebody get their hair cut while you stand in the background. Even Babe Ruth, at times,
Wow.
didn't get the ball out of the
I thought that was some of
stadium.
my best work.
Did you really?
I think I might get a
What
Pulitzer
part?
for that. I thought that was some of my hardest hitting journalism. Look, we're on ESPN. We're trying to humanize these fighters. We're trying
You're
to
in
let
good
the world
spirits
know.
tonight. I must give you that,
I'm
my
excited.
friend. You are making tonight, at least for me, very fun.
Well,
I must give you full credit
I
for that. You
appreciate
really
that. And who wouldn't have fun on this stage? It's Brooklyn. It's Barclays Center. It's ESPN. We've got a
It's
lot of
history.
things. It's history.
It's history.
It's history, for God's sake. Guess what, Chael? Earlier this week, I spoke to a lot of the other fighters who are competing on this card about the main event, TJ Dillashaw versus Henry Cejudo. We want to know, okay, Elisa's getting mad at me. Voice of God. She said, don't go there.
She said, don't go there yet.
Yes.
She said, talk to the great Chael.
Well, you know what
More
happened?
about my haircut segment.
Well, you know what happened, if I must say? I was supposed to talk about the Calderwood fight, but the fact that he just poo-pooed my whole thing, I said, you know what? I'm not going to give you the pleasure of talking about the Calderwood fight. You know what?
You thought you may take another bump, as we call it. in the
Well,
business.
you know, I wanted to call an audible on you there, all right? Throw you a curveball.
Someone's going over, and someone is the enhancement talent.
So, Joanne Calderwood,
Right.
Ariane Lipski,
Yes.
125-pound weight class. I want to
Yes.
ask you this. Valentina Shevchenko is really good. I think we could both agree on that.
Yep.
She smoked Joanna Jędrzejczyk back in Toronto last month.
Yeah.
There is this sort of middle gap in terms of the flyweights and then the rest of the flyweights. It kind of reminds me of the male flyweights for a very long time with DJ. You've got Lipski, you've got Calderwood, you've got Jessica Ai. Is anyone on the level of Valentina Shevchenko? In other words, could the winner of this fight actually hang with Valentina Shevchenko?
Well, listen, I think at this point, Shevchenko's just put herself in a different realm. You know, that win over Joanna really meant something to me. And we talk about that a lot, but it only meant something to me because Joanna is one of the greatest competitors in this sport, one of the finest female fighters the sport has ever seen. She is somebody who was able to push a pace. She was able to, somebody that nobody could stand up and kickbox with, and nobody wanted to do the championship rounds with, should they, on accident, end up there with her. So that's why we talk about how great Shevchenko is. And as far as a former contender, you know, I do think that there are some girls that can go out there and compete. I will tell you, I did not think in a million years that Thug Rose was going to be the person to bring Joanna down not once but twice. But what did we learn, Errol? It wasn't necessarily about Rose versus Joanna. It was about those styles. So before I tell you, no, there's nobody to go with Shevchenko. Shevchenko is the cream of the crop. That's true. She's got the belt for a reason. But sometimes you have those stylistic matchups that you just don't know you've got until you sit there and you watch them on television. So I'm not ready to go as far as to say we don't have a rising contender. I will just simply tell you at this point in time, I don't know who that contender is.
Calderwood, Lipski, who do you got?
I got Calderwood.
All right. Now let's talk about the main event, as I was planning to
Is that
do.
it? No analysis? Just
No,
a name?
That's it.
I got Calderwood.
That's all you get. What about her haircut? Can you give us an analysis on that?
The haircut was fun.
It doesn't matter what you think about that haircut. All right, main event. I asked some of the other fighters on this card what they thought about it. Here's what they had to say.
It's a apples and oranges style matchup. I think it really comes down to whoever can implement their game plan the best.
I got to go with the Phoenix boys. Henry's from Phoenix. He shows up there at our gym a couple times, so I'm going to have to go with Henry.
I got no prediction, but I always love seeing adversity. It's a great matchup. I like both of them. And what they represent in the cage.
I got TJ winning. I used to train with TJ. He's a buddy of mine. I know how hard he works, and I also know that like he's no bluff.
I think I'm gonna have to go with Cejudo for this one. He just looks great right now, and he looks very strong. And just that weight cut for Dillashaw, that's 10 pounds, and he's a small guy already, so it's interesting.
There's so much going into it, you know what I mean? And I just hope for a very exciting fight.
Olha, uma luta bem difícil, mas eu vou apostar no Cejudo.
Okay, so those are some nice predictions from some of the other fighters on the card. Now it's time for everyone's favorite segment of this pre-fight show, Chael. The prop bet. What's so funny? Jeez Louise.
Just your energy tonight. Go on. Nothing's funny. I'm very happy.
Okay, Chael,
all
here
right.
we go. If Henry Cejudo wins,
yes,
method of victory, all right? And by the way, just to start up Operation, I'm reading it off my phone.
Oh, I thought it was a question to me. All right,
yes,
tell him
okay.
your news.
What is the method? Plus 750 for a KO, plus 1,200 for a submission, or plus 275 for a decision. Henry Cejudo.
Now the question is to
Yes.
me. Henry Cejudo will go to a decision.
Okay. Prop bet number 2. If TJ Dillashaw wins, what will be his method of victory? KO, TKO plus 188. How do they get 188? That's what I want to know. Submission plus 750. Decision plus 200.
I also like a decision there. I am very confident for maybe the first time ever that we are going to get 5 full rounds tonight.
We're getting
of
full
great
25
competition.
minutes. All
Yes.
right, in the end, who wins and how?
Okay, I think that TJ Dillashaw is going to win this fight, and I should add for you, I'm very hedging this. I'm very loose on this. I just like TJ to win in more ways than Henry has to win. I also like the size of TJ Dillashaw. I like the fact that he's coming down. I think he is going to be a little quicker and in a little bit better shape. Now, does that mean that an even better and improved TJ Dillashaw is enough to beat Henry Cejudo? That is the million-dollar question. I am just leaning towards yes.
Okay, so we're going to be on SportsCenter after this fight, Chael. We're going to be breaking
That is
it all
historic.
down. That is historic in its own right. That
is history here in the BK.
It's a new
as you called it.
world order, Chael. It's a new world order. MMA on SportsCenter. What I'm getting at is...
Well, I'm sure there was a point in there
yes,
somewhere. Go
what
ahead.
I'm getting at is, what's going to be the story of the fight?
Okay.
When we go on SportsCenter
Okay.
after this fight, what's going to be the story? How does TJ get this done?
Yeah, okay, so I think this is going to be absolute bare bones 101. Can Henry spend more time in this contest on the floor, with the prediction being that he will be on top should they get down to the canvas, or can TJ keep this fight standing up? I happen to be in the camp that TJ can keep it on his feet, and he is just too dynamic of a striker.
Okay, so you're clearly, at this point, you're leaning towards TJ, and I understand what you're saying about hedging, but if you're Captain Eric Albarracin,
Yes.
and I stress the word captain, what are you telling Henry going into this fight? How do they actually get it done? What does he need to do to get this done?
Okay, first off, he's got to control range. That's something he does so well with Demetrius Johnson. Demetrius Johnson had some of that very flashy and fast and fancy footwork, much like TJ Dillashaw, but Henry Cejudo was willing to stay in the fire. He was willing to step in there, take those kicks to the leg, take those shots to the body, deal with some of those adversities so that he was within striking distance. All that means, Errol, is that if he puts his hand out at arm's reach, can he touch his opponent? If he's putting it here and the answer is no, he can't do anything. He can't now strike him, he can't now wrestle him. If he's in here and the answer is yes, he can change elevation at any point, attack those hips like the Olympic champion wrestler wants to do.
You know what's so interesting? We've been talking about this fight all week long, and there's one component of this fight that I don't feel like we have talked about at all, and it's the pressure. And what I mean by that is there is literally zero pressure on TJ Dillashaw's shoulders going into this fight, right? He loses, goes back up to 135, no harm, no foul, right? If Henry loses, not only does he lose his belt, he may lose his weight class as well. He may not have a future in the UFC anymore. Maybe he doesn't want to fight at 135. That's an immense amount of pressure, right?
And so many people are missing that, Errol, and you're right to point it out for them. No matter what happens this evening, TJ Dillashaw wakes up tomorrow morning world champion.
Yeah.
That's what people are missing. There is many scenarios tonight where Henry Cejudo does not. So you are very right to bring up that pressure.
Yeah, so Henry Cejudo says that, and also, by the way, he's putting that pressure on himself, right? He's not just saying I'm going to win this fight. He's saying I'm going to win this fight for all my brothers.
Sure.
So that's interesting to know, but I feel like he is rising to the occasion. I've seen a change in Henry Cejudo this week. Feels like he's more comfortable doing media, more comfortable being champion, and that's not usually something that you see when someone is going to their first title defense. It usually happens after 1 or 2, right? I've been impressed, maybe because he's been on this stage before as an Olympian, but I feel like he's owning this, and he's comfortable, and I don't feel like he's going to buckle under that pressure.
Yeah, I will tell you one thing that you will see universally about somebody with an Olympic gold medal is they do not give in to pressure. Sometimes, Errol, he won't even know what it is you're talking about. They will embrace that. They will embrace the grind. They will embrace the adversity, something Henry Cejudo has done his whole life. I fully agree with you that the pressure is on him, but I would not agree with you that he's aware of it.
Okay, and as far as TJ is concerned, do you feel like we know the kind of fighter that TJ is in the sense that he is very unpredictable as a fighter, but we know, like, his unpredictability is predictable.
Sure.
You get what I'm saying? Is there any fight that we've seen from him in the past? Because when I think back to his last few opponents, he hasn't fought anyone quite like Henry Cejudo. And I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but is there any fight that we've seen from him in the past where you could say, okay, that's the kind of TJ that we're going to see. That's the kind of unpredictable TJ, if you get what I'm saying.
Well, I'll tell you this, and this is the bad news for TJ, is he is the favorite. Now, that surprises me going into this fight. And as of 3 days ago, I could not tell you that. He wasn't the favorite. The line has actually changed in the last 72 hours. Now, where that gets relevant is when TJ does his finest work, whether it was the pressure of the whole world and his own peers, his own friends, his own former teammates being against him, not once but twice against Cody Garbrandt, whether it was when he went in with Renan Barão, where he was the sport's biggest underdog of all time to leave with the championship, 7-1 odds against him according to Vegas. TJ steps up to the challenge when it is not expected of him. Tonight, as of the last 3 days, it is now expected to him. That is a position where he does not historically perform at his best. I still will suggest for you, it's enough.
I don't know if you heard, but history is being made here tonight at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. This is a phenomenal arena, and it's the perfect place to make history because in around 30 minutes, we will be kicking off a brand new era in mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts has never aired live on ESPN, and that changes in 30 minutes. At 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN Plus, it all kicks off. You got a pre-fight show airing right now on ESPN Plus. Check that out as well. Then at 8 o'clock on ESPN Television, it all goes down. And then at 10 o'clock on ESPN Plus, it's the main card. History will be made. TJ Dillashaw trying to become just the 4th fighter in UFC history to win 2 titles and hold them at the same time. And Henry Cejudo is trying to actually save a division. You cannot write a better script. Go to ESPN Plus right now to watch some history.
Henry Cejudo looking to change the course of sports history.
Good left hand by Cejudo. Oh! Olympic champion, now UFC champion. Now give me the best at 135 pounds.
2-time UFC bantamweight champion.
Oh, that's it!
Dillashaw has done it again! And you might be looking at the greatest 135-pound fighter of all time.
Cejudo, I think I walk right through you. If you want to fight me, I'm coming for you.
The UFC flyweight title will be on the line.
Champion versus champion, the super fight.
He knows who the best champ is. He knows who's number one. And I'm going to prove that I'm the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. I have the strength, I have the wrestling, I have the power to knock him out.
He's hurt! Henry Cejudo